Welcome to today's Explainer. We're doing something a little different today. We are fundamentally shifting how you look at your freelance business. You know that hustle-based guilt we all get? That nagging feeling where you think every single problem is just a sign you aren't working hard enough? Well, we're tossing that out. Instead, we're moving toward absolute, structural, systemic control of your work. By the end of this, you're going to be able to spot the traps that drain your energy long before they ever actually happen. So think about this for a second. Why does a simple, slightly vague message, or a late reply, or maybe a slightly fuzzy project scope have the power to just completely derail a project? At first glance, these mistakes look tiny, right? A client says, "Hey, can you just handle it?" And you, trying to be helpful, you say, "Sure." It seems totally harmless, but we've all been there. We know that these tiny moments somehow snowball into massive, stressful nightmares. Why is that? The answer actually lies in how we view our work to begin with. Freelancing is a trust system. It's not some isolated task factory where you just crank out a deliverable and move on. It's an interconnected chain. Every single message, every handoff, and every boundary you set, it either adds confidence to that system or it actively removes confidence from it.
Okay, let's dive into this and see how this chain reaction actually works, because a tiny error rarely stays tiny. First, you hit the time drain. You're forced to spend extra hours fixing confusion that honestly shouldn't have been there in the first place. Then you hit the money loss. The work expands, the timeline drags, or worse, you end up effectively working for free. And finally, you hit the absolute worst step, trust erosion. The client starts worrying and wondering what else might go wrong.
To stop this whole cascade, we really have to look a layer deeper. Those costly mistakes, they're actually incredibly predictable breakdowns in the hidden gears holding your work together. There are 5 specific mechanics at play here, and once you understand these 5 gears, your freelance problems are going to stop looking like random bad luck and start looking like highly predictable system failures that you can completely control.
The first hidden mechanic is expectations. When a client assumes you just know what they mean, or you assume, they probably want the usual, you are setting a trap. Working without clear expectations is literally like trying to cook without knowing the recipe, the portion size, or even what dish you're supposed to be making. You pour all this effort in, but it's like a bucket with a hole in it. The value just leaks out because it's invisible work. It's effort the client never asked for and might not even want.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we define scope. A lot of freelance pain comes from treating scope like a flexible mood, but scope is a strict container. Think of it exactly like packing a suitcase. If the bag has no defined limit, the client is just going to keep adding just one more thing until that bag is physically impossible for you to carry. Scope keeps the work portable, and it strictly prevents that just one more thing creep.
Our third mechanic is delays. And here's the secret about delays. They are rarely just about time. A missed deadline acts like a missing train on a connection route. The client isn't just missing that one single piece of work. Every single subsequent plan they made now has to adjust. It's a breach in confidence. It forces the client to start emotionally planning around your uncertainty.
Mechanic number 4 is communication. Look, a lot of freelancers think sending an email that says, "Hey, I'm working on it," is good communication. But communication isn't just passing along facts. It's active coordination. Think of it like your car's dashboard. It doesn't actually drive the car for you, but it shows you if the system is healthy, and it prevents expensive, dangerous guessing.
Finally, we have the 5th gear, price. Price is not just compensation for your time. It's a massive signal of value and a hard boundary. If you underprice your work, it's like handing out a snack menu. Clients are going to subconsciously expect snack-level boundaries, and they'll continuously push for more without respecting your limits. Underpricing literally changes client behavior before the work even begins. So look at the pattern underneath all these mechanics. Whether we're talking about the bucket with a hole, the overstuffed suitcase, or the snack menu pricing, they all share the exact same root cause. They make the work harder to predict. System failures begin as small moments of uncertainty that make the whole project volatile. The real question you need to ask isn't what mistake happened. It's where did predictability break down? Let's see how this builds into a completely new way of making decisions. This is your new decision lens. Instead of just reacting to every incoming wave that hits you, you're going to use this lens to actually steer the boat. When a client asks a question or wants a change, don't just act on instinct. Pause. Ask yourself what this choice does to those 5 hidden gears holding the project together.
I know, It is so tempting to just make a good enough decision in the heat of the moment. You say yes to an unclear request purely to avoid an awkward conversation. But saying yes just to avoid discomfort is exactly like folding a map in the wrong place. Sure, it looks totally fine from a distance, and hey, it gets you out of the immediate pain. But when you actually try to navigate the project a week later, none of the roads line up.
So the crucial point is that a truly strong decision operates on 3 simultaneous layers. First, you need clarity, which protects the project so everyone knows exactly what's included. Then you need capacity, ensuring you can actually deliver it without burning yourself out. And lastly, you need boundaries, making sure any extra work has a real cost. If you have clarity but zero capacity, you're going to fail. If you have capacity but zero boundaries, your scope is going to leak. They absolutely must work together. And applying those 3 layers correctly requires the right timing. Timing in freelance decisions works exactly like the brakes on a car. Think about it. Brakes aren't there just to stop you dead in your tracks. They're there so you can control your motion before it becomes dangerous. Experienced freelancers seem super calm not because they never have problems, but because they apply the brakes to clarify scope or flag a delay while the uncertainty is still small enough to actually handle. Of course, applying those brakes means you have to navigate a constant clash between 3 forces: speed, quality, and boundaries. The client always wants movement, the work inherently demands care, and your energy, well, it has limits. You literally cannot maximize all 3 at once. Your job as a strong freelancer isn't to magically do the impossible, it's to act as an interpreter. You make these inherent trade-offs totally visible to the client before they turn into permanent damage. Let me tell you a quick story from our source material about a freelancer named Ava. Ava's redesigning a website, right? And the client starts adding these quote-unquote tiny new requests. A new section here, a tweaked header there. Ava could just react emotionally and absorb the work to please them, but instead she uses a system-level judgment. She recognizes that this barrage of small requests isn't just extra tasks, it is a systemic redefinition of the entire job. And this brilliantly illustrates the golden rule of this entire explainer. When you are feeling pressured or confused or just totally unsure of how to reply to a client, isolate this one single question. Does this decision make the project more predictable or less predictable? Honestly, that question cuts right through all the noise, the guilt, and the hustle culture panic. Notice the stark contrast in mindsets here. The reactive freelancer is living in this constant state of panic, always asking, how do I keep this moving right now? That's a short-term survival mindset. But the reliable freelancer operates on the completely opposite end. How do I keep this clear, fair, and sustainable over the life of the project? It's a massive shift from relying on random luck to actually designing for long-term stability. This is your new identity. A reliable freelancer doesn't avoid problems by magic. They use these core traits. They make expectations crystal clear. They aggressively protect the scope suitcase before things get blurry. They treat time as a measure of trust. They communicate as a dashboard to actively coordinate. And they wield price as a defining boundary. They diagnose and neutralize risks before they ever have a chance to compound. Which leaves us right here. You now know that freelance mistakes aren't personal failings, right? They are system failures. You know the exact gears to watch and the boundaries to hold. So as you go into your very next client interaction, whether it's an email draft or a big scoping call, I challenge you to ask yourself, will your next decision make the project more predictable or less? Keep that lens handy and go take control of your work.